Pierre Gasly has just delivered one of the most intriguing warnings of this new Formula One era. I advise you to be sitting with your TV on in Australia because it could be one that everybody remembers. He's talking about the very first start of the 2026 season in Melbourne, and he is openly hinting that it could be chaotic. In this video, we will break down what Gasly means, why the new 2026 rules make the start procedure so tricky, and how other drivers like Oscar Piastri and Esteban Ocon are already sounding the alarm. Gasly says that if he were not on the grid himself, he would be sitting at home watching the start of the Australian Grand Prix. He believes there are real reasons to expect trouble when the lights go out in Melbourne. Formula One has brought in new chassis and engine regulations for 2026, and both of them have a direct impact on how these cars leave the grid. Gasly does not go into every detail publicly, but he makes it very clear. It could be one that everybody remembers. We will find out. I am not too sure myself, but yeah, it is definitely going to be more tricky than it used to be. On the engine side, the key change is the removal of the MGU H. In the previous hybrid era, the MGU H helped control the turbo, keeping it in the right operating window and smoothing out the response. Now that job falls much more heavily on the internal combustion engine itself. Drivers have to rev the engine higher and for longer before the start just to get the turbo spinning properly. The consequence? The process becomes much more delicate. It is easier to have a slow getaway, and it is easier to trigger anti-stall if the torque delivery is not exactly where it needs to be. Gasly explains that after only 2 weeks of testing, teams can already see that starts in Australia will not be easy. He still believes everyone will learn quickly in the space of a couple of weeks or months, but for the first races, he clearly expects problems. Then there is the chassis side of the 2026 rules. Oscar Piastri has already raised questions about the use of active aero before Turn 1 in Melbourne. He summed it up brutally. A pack of 22 cars with a couple hundred points less downforce sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. With these new cars, active aero changes the level of downforce dynamically, and if the system is not perfectly managed into Turn 1 with low downforce, cold tyres and heavy fuel, you suddenly have very light cars trying to fight for position into one of the tightest first corners of the year. Combine that with potentially messy starts off the line, and you have exactly the kind of scenario Gasly is hinting at. Gasly also makes another point that would have sounded strange a few years ago. He says that in Australia, reliability and simply getting to the end of the race will be challenge number one and priority number one. With the previous cars, that is not something we would have said, he explains. But these 2026 machines are extremely complex. It's not just about launch maps and start procedures, it's the entire car. New power unit architecture, new aero, new systems, all potentially vulnerable in the first real Grand Prix conditions. There's also a strategic twist for the backmarkers. To get the best possible getaway now, drivers need to rev the engine for a long time on the grid before the lights go out. But the cars at the very back are the last ones to reach the starting boxes. They simply might not have as much time as they want to get everything into the perfect window. Asked about this, Esteban Ocon was very clear. He said it would be better if the procedure stayed as it is rather than being changed to help the backmarkers. From his point of view, it wouldn't be fair for the top 3 to sit on the grid for 90 seconds waiting for everyone else, risking cold tyres into Turn 1. Ocon expects to see a lot more struggling of starts and a lot more differences compared to previous years. In the past, the worst start might cost you 1 or 2 positions. Now, he says, you could lose the whole lot. Ocon also points out that these are still early days. Bahrain is not even the ideal place to test starts because the grip on the grid is relatively low. That actually helps the engine and masks some of the problems. He compares the feeling to old rally cars or old turbo cars where it was easy to spin up the turbo by feel.
With the 2026 units, he says what drivers do doesn't have much input on how the turbo responds anymore. It's very strange, Ocon admits, but it's the same for all of us. That line is key. Everybody is learning at the same time, under the same regulations. But some teams will adapt faster than others, and the first real proof will come in Australia when the lights actually go out. So Pierre Gasly's advice is simple. Turn your TV on for the start in Australia. It might be memorable. New engines without MGU H, more turbo lag, active aero, 22 cars with less downforce and very complex start procedures. All the ingredients are there for a season-opening start that could be remembered for all the right or all the wrong reasons. What do you think? Will Australia be pure chaos off the line, or will the teams get on top of it in time? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like if this helped you understand what Gasly and Ocon are worried about, and subscribe to Apex Racing Desk so you don't miss our breakdown of the very first 2026 race start in Melbourne.